What's up YouTube? Welcome back to the 6.0 Birds YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking injectors and what sizes you should pick for your 6.0 Powerstroke build. But first, if you guys haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoy our content. And as always, let's see those comments down below. What are you guys running in your trucks? So first, with the stock injector, it is a 135cc body and a nozzle. So what that is, the body is what holds the fuel, and the nozzles obviously determines how fast that fuel dumps out of the injector. Common bodied size injectors for a 6.0 Powerstroke would be the stock, obviously, at 135, 155, 175, 190, 205, 225, and they continue to go on up well into the 300s. I think there's even 400 bodied nozzle or bodied injectors out there, so the sky is the limit. Now, for most people watching this video, your most common nozzle sizes are going to be either 30%, 75, 100, and if you are running a really big injector, I'm talking in excess of 250 cc's, then you can probably look at a 150% over injector, and that percentage is how much larger it is. So a 30% nozzle is 30% larger than the stock nozzle. We're also not going to get into builders here. There's lots of builders out there, and we can kind of talk about that in the comment section, guys. If you're looking for what I'm running, I currently run Warren diesel injectors in my truck, and most likely my next set will be as well, but there are a lot of other builders out there, and it's up to you guys to do some research. Again, guys, in the comment section, you guys determine this video. If you guys are asking for it, I will go and do some research, talk to a few different builders, and put a video together for you guys. Now, as for injectors, there is a debate across the forums. You cannot find just clear-cut answers, and you got to remember, guys, this is all an opinion. Everybody out there, it's their opinion. Some people really like to roll coal. Some people, like myself, we try to keep our power as clean as possible. But everything's an opinion, mine included. So please do not take this as any kind of written in stone doctrine on what to do for your 6.0 Powerstroke. However, I do hope this helps you guys in picking the best injector for your truck. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about nozzles, when to do them and when not to do them. The first thing I want to say is if you're sticking with a smaller bodied injector, a 175 or smaller, I don't recommend nozzles at all, even on a 175. Now, 175/30s is a very common injector size, don't get me wrong, and many people love it. I just think you're better off not putting a nozzle on that injector. And if you really want nozzles, stepping up to a 190 or a 205 before you start using that extra nozzle. Because what that's going to do is it can decrease your idle quality. It can also make your truck run hot. It's going to smoke more. So the point is getting a bigger injector body behind that nozzle, and it'll help atomize that fuel as it's being pressed out by the high pressure oil generated from your high pressure oil pump. For instance, I'm running 175 with a stock nozzle on my truck, and I love it. They're great. They are a definite power increase over a stock injector. I've seen people say if you don't upgrade the nozzle, you're not getting any more power, and let me tell you, that is completely wrong. You definitely are. They have clearly never driven a upgraded injector with a stock nozzle, because you do have a most definite power increase, and they are much more fun to drive. So as far as nozzle goes, sticking with a stock size nozzle from 155 through 175 cc injectors is my personal recommendation. You're going to get clean power. They're going to clean up easily with as small of a turbo as a Power Max. Now, I do think there is a little more left on the table if you want to upgrade to a slightly bigger charger, which I'll use this time to shout out my sponsor, Turbo Time USA. Go check them out. Link down in the description. Now, I do want to take a time out. A lot of people do put 30% nozzles on a 155 and a 175 injector, and it's not that it's a terrible idea. I don't personally care for it in a 155. I think that is a complete waste of money to put a bigger nozzle on them, personal opinion. And with a 175, I just don't see a big enough horsepower gain going from a stock nozzle to a 30% over from what I've seen different guys dyno and some actual facts put out there. Now, there are some people that if you're looking for that extra, 15 horsepower maybe, then by all means, but personally, I think that's when you need to upgrade into the next category we're going to talk about here in just a moment. The next category we're going to talk about, and that is kind of one where you're going to use a small injector upgrade or nozzle upgrade, and one where you can actually go a little bit bigger, but I still don't actually recommend it. And that is 190s and 205s. These have become increasingly more popular with people running a 30% nozzle on them lately, and finding out that you can have a relatively large injector, all things considered, and still be able to tow max weight. You guys that have been following the channel for a long time know that we tow a 13,000 pound fifth wheel, and if my truck can't do that, I've messed my build up and I have to change some things around. Now at the same time, a 190/30 or a 205/30 is roughly a 600 horsepower injector, give or take. You're in that 580 to probably 620 range. Don't hold me to that, because obviously you need supporting mods for that. Now in this category, you are definitely going to need a fuel system and potentially even a regulated return to maintain pressure on your injectors. What I mean by that is you need to maintain 45 psi or greater injection or fuel pressure for them to fill up completely and not damage them on the stroke, because the fuel in the injector itself almost acts like a shock absorber, and for the plunger assembly, I believe it's called. And if you're not able to maintain that, you're going to damage your injectors that you just spent a lot of money on. Now, previous to these injectors, if you just had a healthy stock fuel system and you kept with the stock nozzle, you most likely didn't need to upgrade. However, it doesn't hurt to put in a fast or air dog system. I personally run a fast 125 gallon per hour fuel pump on my truck, and I don't see less than 64 psi of pressure regardless. So now you need to factor these two new things into the cost of your injectors. You're definitely going to need a lift pump, and most likely you're going to also need a regulated return. You might be able to get away with a newer factory fuel pump, but definitely a regulated return at that point. And I don't know how long that factory fuel pump will be able to supply fuel to an injector of this size. So now we started talking about nozzle size now, and that this is where I start to recommend it. A 190, I never recommend upgrading past a 30%. 190/30, if you're in that ballpark, in my opinion, stick with that. If you want more fuel than that, it's a very insignificant cost to go up to a 205 or 225. I mean, we're talking the difference of 100 to 150 bucks to go to an injector that has a lot more fuel to it, that you can really justify that 75 or 100% nozzle upgrade and actually see some true benefit from that. If you're looking at nozzle sizes in that ballpark, in my opinion, you should 190s and 205s are 30% nozzles. A 205, maybe you can run a 75% nozzle, but that's as big as I would go, and I tend to steer more towards the 225 and 250 size before I start looking at that 100% nozzle, or even a 75. I think really kicks in at the 225 mark, in my opinion. Again, this whole video is just an opinion. And also, guys, check out, if I haven't mentioned it already in the video, I forget, Casey Turbo does a fantastic job of talking about fuel injectors and different setups and his opinions on them and what everything means. It's a much more technical video about picking the body and nozzle and what that means to you guys. So go check that out when you guys have a second, if you're looking for more in-depth about the mechanics of what's going on. Now, guys, when you get past the 190, 205 range, there is another upgrade besides fuel system and regulated return that you need to consider, and that is your high pressure oil pump. At this point, if you're not going to switch to a hybrid injector, which requires less high pressure oil to make it fire that same larger amount of fuel, then you're going to definitely need to be looking at some stage 2 high pressure oil pumps that are able to feed some of these larger injectors, a stock or even a slightly upgraded one that oddly enough, I'm wearing my CNC fabrication shirt, that them or the guys over at Diesel Site make their stage 1 pumps. Then you're definitely going to be looking at their stage 2 pumps to be able to supply the oil needed to fire these injectors. So something else to consider in your cost when you're putting together your build list. This is really where that price point jumps up again. You're probably talking like a $1,200 high pressure oil pump on top of injectors, fuel system, and a regulated return. Now, the 190 205s, guys, with the 30% nozzle, like we said, roughly a 600 horsepower capable injector. Now, obviously, a 205, you probably do see benefit from a 75% nozzle, really being able to put out a little more fuel in your higher RPM band, making some more power. But in my opinion, for the small cost to go from a 205 to a 225, that's where you're really going to see a much larger benefit with that 75% nozzle on your injector. Now guys, I will be honest with you, after that range, that is really where I've spent the bulk of my research with injectors. So that's all I can comment on horsepower range. When from here on out, the sky is the limit. We're not really going to get much into it. Hybrids come in all sorts of sizes, with also now you're talking 150, 200% larger nozzles to be able to dump all that fuel and make all that power that you need. And you're also maybe talking about, for some of those, having to run a dual high pressure oil pump setups. That's really where you get out of the realm of daily driving your truck a lot, because you need so much to make it all come together. I'm not saying you can't, but I'm saying this is probably, in my opinion, a 205/30, 225/75 is probably the max you guys want to daily drive. One, now you have stepped up into the mid to high 600-700 horsepower range, and I don't really know that you want to daily drive that all the time. So if you guys are looking in that injector category, you probably want to consider having a second vehicle or a dedicated race vehicle to do it in. I'm not saying that people haven't daily driven them. I'm just saying I don't know if it's any fun at that point, because you are kind of maybe a 225/75, still relatively on the smaller side, but you have a fair amount of fuel now capable of making a lot of power, all things considered. So keep that in mind, guys, as you're picking these injectors and the different stages that kind of where you need to put in extra modifications to make it all work. So to recap, again, what is my opinion? 155, 175 injectors. Personally, I wouldn't waste my time with a 155. I would just go right to a 175 with a stock nozzle, and you can probably get away with no other modifications, provided your lift pump is healthy. If not, a factory replacement one is more than sufficient to supply fuel to it. Moving up from there, my next favorite one would be a 205/30, which, since I did say I would reveal it, that is what I'm going to run in my truck here in the near future, is a 205/30. You can detune a 205/30 to run just like a 155/30, or even a 135, which would be a stock bodied with a 30% over nozzle. Not that you would do that, because that would be kind of dumb and a waste of money, but you can tune them to be the same. They tune, a lot of times they're tuning for the nozzle on the injector and not necessarily how big the body is itself. Now at this point, you are at that point, guys, just to review, you're going to definitely need a lift pump and probably a regulated return to supply enough fuel to that, especially if you go to an even larger nozzle than the 30%. Something, again, guys, to keep in mind. And also for anything north of that, with the exception of hybrids, because you can get away with a stock oil system on hybrids longer. I don't know what the threshold for when you start needing to really upgrade at that point is. I hope this video was helpful. I've been getting a lot of injector questions lately, so I wanted to release where my thought is. Personally, I think 3 injectors would cover 90% of what people want. A 175 stock, a 205/30, and a 225/75 would probably cover what most of us are looking for in our trucks. Obviously, north of that, there's some different things, but you're getting more into a dedicated dyno truck or drag racing build at that point. So that's kind of where I stand, guys. I hope this video helped. Again, just my opinion. Please do some more research yourself and really educate yourself before you make this purchase, but I do hope this helped you guys anyway. Now for a truck update, the truck, we're still getting it back. We ran into a minor issue with the transmission. It's getting gone over, and it's going to be perfect when it comes back, but we did run into a small issue. So that's getting addressed, guys. We'll talk about that more when I have the video out when the truck is back. It should be back this week. So very excited for that, guys. We're going to do some reviews. I'm going to take you guys along for my first drive in the truck with the built transmission. Very excited for that, guys. Then we're going to go back. We're going to hit up a dyno. I am planning on doing a intake shootout still. I just need to kind of get my hands on some intakes for the truck and actually see what they do on the dyno and if one is better than another, and also maybe do some street testing with it. So we'll see what happens, guys. Anyway, thank you again for your support. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy our content, and again, let's see those comments down below. I will see you guys in the next upload.